The silent exodus. The great chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with the usual chatter. Representatives from 47 different species filled the massive hall, their voices creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and growls. The translator. Devices worked perfectly, turning every sound into clear speech that everyone could understand. Counselor Vexithara adjusted her silver robes and looked around the room. Her large purple eyes scanned the crowd, noting which species had sent their best diplomats and which had sent their junior staff. The Zentaurians sat in their golden armor, looking proud as always. The Krell delegation whispered among themselves, their insect-like heads moving quickly. The Zephyrians floated in their special chairs, their gaseous bodies contained within clear containers. Everything seemed normal. The quarterly meeting was going just like hundreds of others before it. They would discuss trade routes, argue about mining rights, and vote on new regulations. It was boring but necessary work that kept the galaxy running smoothly. "Order, order!" called Speaker Morden, his voice booming across the chamber. The massive alien stood 12 feet tall, his rock-like skin reflecting the lights. "We will now review the attendance records." Vexithara pulled up her datapad and scrolled through the list of member species. Her finger stopped when she reached one particular entry. She frowned and checked the records again. Strange, she muttered to herself. The Terran Federation, the humans. They had not sent anyone to this meeting. In fact, looking at the records more carefully, they had not sent anyone to the last meeting either, or the one before that. Vexithara raised her hand. "Speaker Morden, I noticed the Terran Federation has not attended our last 3 sessions. Should we send an inquiry?" Speaker Morden paused. His large eyes blinked slowly as he accessed his own records. "Indeed, it appears they have been absent for 6 months. This is unusual for them." Around the chamber, other counselors began checking their own data. The humans had always been reliable attendees. They rarely spoke during debates, preferring to listen and take notes. When they did speak, it was usually to suggest small improvements to existing policies or to offer technical solutions to problems. "Perhaps they are busy with internal matters," suggested Counselor Zekmar of the Krell. His mandibles clicked as he spoke. "Humans are always working on something." "Or maybe they finally realized how boring these meetings are," joked Counselor Thane from the Zephyrian delegation. Several other representatives laughed, but Vexithara felt uneasy. She had worked with human diplomats for over 20 years. They were predictable, reliable, and always prepared. Missing one meeting might be understandable. Missing 3 was completely out of character. "I recommend we send a formal inquiry," she said. "Agreed." Speaker Morden nodded. "Counselor Vexithara, please handle this matter. Now let us proceed with today's agenda." The meeting continued, but Vexithara's mind wandered. She kept thinking about the humans. They had joined the Galactic Council 50 years ago, not long, after discovering faster-than-light travel. Compared to other species, they were newcomers. Most species took centuries to develop the technology needed for galactic travel. When humans first arrived, many council members had been skeptical. Humans were young, aggressive, and unpredictable. They came from a world that had known constant warfare. Many expected them to cause trouble. Instead, the humans had been surprisingly helpful. They shared their technology freely, helped establish trade routes, and never started conflicts with other species. They seemed content to be junior members of the galactic community. After the meeting ended, Vexithara returned to her office and composed a formal message to the Terran Federation. She sent it through the standard diplomatic channels and waited for a response. Days passed. No response came. She tried different communication methods. She sent messages to human colonies, trade stations, and research facilities. Still, nothing. Growing. Concerned, Vexithara decided to visit human space personally. She boarded her ship and set course for Earth, the human homeworld. The journey took 3 days. As her ship approached the Sol system, everything looked normal. The orbital stations were still there, rotating slowly in space. The defense platforms showed green lights, indicating they were operational. Traffic control systems guided her, ship toward Earth automatically, but something felt wrong. There were no other ships moving around the system. No cargo vessels, no passenger liners, no military patrols. The space around Earth was empty. Earth Control. This is Counselor Vexithara requesting permission to land, she said into her communicator. Permission granted, came the automated response. Please proceed to landing bay 7. The voice was artificial, a computer system, not a living person. Vexithara landed her ship in the designated bay. The landing pad was clean and well-maintained. The lights worked perfectly, but no one came to greet her. She walked through the spaceport, her footsteps echoing in the empty halls. Everything was in perfect order. The shops were stocked with goods. The restaurants had food sitting on tables as if people had just stepped away for a moment. But there were no people anywhere. She took a transport vehicle into the nearest city. The streets were empty but clean. Cars sat parked along the roads. Buildings stood tall and proud, their windows reflecting the afternoon sun. Streetlights worked normally. Public displays showed current news updates and weather reports, but no humans walked the sidewalks. No children played in the parks. No workers hurried to their jobs. Vexithara visited building after building, homes with dinner, still sitting on stoves, offices with computers still running and coffee cups still warm, schools with lessons written on boards and books open on desks. It was as if every human on Earth had simply vanished in the middle of their daily activities. She returned to her ship and tried contacting other human worlds. New Tokyo, New Berlin, New Lagos, Eden Prime. Every human colony and settlement showed the same pattern, empty but functioning, abandoned but maintained. For 2 weeks, Vexithara searched human space. She found thousands of empty worlds, stations, and outposts. Not a single human remained anywhere. There were no signs of violence, no evidence of disease, no indication of forced evacuation. The humans had simply gone away. When she returned to the Council, Vexithara's report sent shockwaves through the Galactic government. Emergency sessions were called. Investigators were sent to verify her findings. Military ships were dispatched to search for any trace of humanity. The results were always the same. Humanity had vanished without a trace, leaving behind their entire civilization intact and functional. Where could they have gone? Asked Speaker Morden during an emergency session. Perhaps they developed new technology that allowed them to travel beyond our detection range, suggested Counselor Zekmar. Or maybe they were abducted by some unknown force, added Counselor Thane. Vexithara listened to the theories and debates, but deep in her heart, she suspected something different. The humans had not been taken against their will. They had chosen to leave. But why? And why had they left everything behind? In the weeks that followed, the Council established a committee to investigate humanity's disappearance. They analyzed human technology, studied their records, and interviewed species that had worked closely with humans. What they discovered would soon shake the very foundations of galactic civilization. The humans had been far more important than anyone had realized, and without them, the galaxy was about to face its greatest crisis. The first crack's 3 months had passed since Counselor Vexithara's discovery. The mystery of humanity's disappearance remained unsolved, but life in the galaxy continued. Trade ships moved between worlds, diplomats held meetings, and citizens went about their daily lives. Most people had heard about the missing humans, but it seemed like someone else's problem. The first sign of trouble came from the Zentaurian Empire's communication center on their capital world. Chief Operator Gaxalon stared at his control panel with growing frustration. For the past week, messages between star systems had been taking longer than usual to arrive. Sometimes a communication that should take minutes was taking hours. Other times, messages arrived scrambled or incomplete. "Run another diagnostic," he ordered his assistant. "I've already run 12 diagnostics," the assistant replied. "All our equipment is working perfectly." Gaxalon scratched his scaled head. The Zentaurian communication network was the pride of their empire. It connected hundreds of worlds across their territory. For 50 years it had worked without major problems. "Contact the other empires," he said. "Ask if they're having similar issues." The response worried him. The Krell Hive reported message delays of up to 6 hours. The Zephyrian Confederacy had lost contact with 3 of their outer colonies entirely. Even the advanced Altarian Union was experiencing problems with their quantum communication arrays. Something was affecting the entire galactic communication network. Meanwhile, Captain Thexara of the Zentaurian patrol ship Starhammer faced her own crisis. Her ship had been on a routine patrol of the Outer Rim when their navigation system began giving impossible readings. "Computer says we're supposed to be in 3 different places at the same time," reported her navigator, Lieutenant. "Kexval, that's ridiculous," Captain Thexara replied. "Run a full system check." "Already did. Twice. The navigation computer is working fine, but the stellar positioning data doesn't match what we're seeing outside." Captain Thexara looked out the view screen at the stars. They looked exactly like they always had. But according to their instruments, they were simultaneously near the Rigel system, close to Vega, and somewhere in empty space between galaxies. "Set course for home base manually," she ordered. "Use visual navigation." "Ma'am, we haven't used visual navigation. In over a century, I'm not sure how to do it." The captain realized with a growing sense of dread that she didn't know how to navigate by the stars either. Her species had relied on computer systems for so long that the old skills had been forgotten. Similar problems were appearing throughout the galaxy. The Krell military discovered that their tactical computers were making calculation errors during training exercises. Zephyrian cargo ships found themselves arriving at the wrong planets despite following their navigation systems perfectly. Altarian research stations reported that their scientific equipment was producing inconsistent results. At first, each species blamed their own technology. They ran diagnostics, replaced components, and updated software. But the problems only got worse. Counselor Vexithera received reports from across the galaxy. Each incident seemed small by itself, but together they painted a disturbing picture. She began to suspect a connection to humanity's disappearance. She called for another emergency council session. "Fellow counselors," she announced, "I believe the technical problems we're experiencing are related to humanity's absence." The chamber erupted in laughter. Counselor Thane's gaseous form shimmered with amusement. "Are you suggesting that humans were somehow responsible for maintaining our technology? That's absurd. We've been spacefaring species for thousands of years. Humans have only been here for 50. Nevertheless," Vexithara continued, "the timing is suspicious. These problems started exactly 3 months after humanity disappeared." Speaker Mordun raised his massive hand for silence. "Counselor Vexithara, do you have evidence to support this theory?" Vexithara activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Red dots appeared wherever technical problems had been reported. The pattern was clear. Every area where humans had been active was now experiencing difficulties. "This could be coincidence," argued Counselor Zekmar, his mandibles clicking nervously. "I propose we investigate," Vexithara said. "Let's examine exactly what humans contributed to our galactic infrastructure." The investigation that followed revealed disturbing facts. Over the past 50 years, humans had quietly integrated themselves into almost every aspect of galactic society. They had provided software updates for communication systems. They had contributed to navigation databases. They had helped design trade route algorithms and translation protocols. At the time, these contributions had seemed minor. Humans were always offering small improvements and helpful suggestions. Other species had accepted their help without thinking much about it. Now, with humans gone, those small improvements were revealed to be critical components holding everything together. The communication delays were caused by missing update protocols that humans had been quietly maintaining. The navigation errors resulted from outdated stellar position data that human astronomers had been constantly refining. The tactical computer problems stemmed from calculation algorithms that humans had gradually improved over decades. Dr. Yiltar, the Altarian Union's chief technology officer, made perhaps the most disturbing discovery. While examining the core programming of their quantum communication system, he found layers upon layers of human code integrated so deeply that removing it would cause the entire system to collapse. "It's like they built themselves into the foundation of our technology," he reported to the council. "Not obviously or aggressively, but subtly, gradually over many years." "But why would they do this?" asked Councillor Thane. "Maybe they were planning to leave all along," suggested Vex Thara. The idea seemed impossible. Why would humans spend 50 years helping to build galactic civilization only to abandon it? Why would they make themselves so essential if they planned to disappear? As the investigation continued, more dependencies were discovered. Human agricultural specialists had developed crop rotation schedules used on dozens of worlds. Human economists had created trade formulas that kept the galactic economy stable. Human sociologists had written conflict resolution protocols that prevented wars between species. The galaxy had become dependent on human expertise in ways that no one had fully understood. And now, without humans to maintain these systems, everything was slowly falling apart. "We need to find them," declared Speaker Morden. "Whatever it takes, we must bring humanity back." "But we don't even know where they went," Councillor Zekmar pointed out. "Then we search everywhere," the speaker replied. "Send ships to every corner of the galaxy. Check every world, every system, every asteroid. Humanity must be found." The council approved the largest search operation in galactic history. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species were dispatched to look for any trace of humanity. But as the search began, the technical problems continued to multiply. Communication networks became more unreliable. Navigation systems failed more frequently. Trade routes that had been stable for decades suddenly became unprofitable. The galaxy was beginning to unravel, and humanity was nowhere to be found. Vexathera stood in her office, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, billions of humans had vanished without a trace. They had left behind a galaxy that was discovering too late how much it needed them. She had a terrible feeling that the worst was yet to come. Cascading collapse. 6 months after humanity's disappearance, the galactic economy entered a death spiral. It began with the collapse of the Rigel Trade Consortium, one of the galaxy's largest shipping companies. For 30 years, they had used human-designed algorithms to optimize their cargo routes. These systems calculated the most efficient paths between thousands of worlds, accounting for stellar drift, fuel costs, and political situations. Without humans to maintain the algorithms, the calculations became increasingly unreliable. Ships arrived late or went to wrong destinations. Cargo that should have taken weeks to deliver took months. Costs soared while profits vanished. "We're losing money on every shipment," reported Finance Director Colvin to the consortium's board. "The route optimization system is giving us paths that make no economic sense." "Can't we fix it?" asked Board Chairman Veltok. "We've tried. Our best programmers have been working on it for months. The human code is too complex. Every time we change something, 10 other things break." Within weeks, the Rigel Trade Consortium declared bankruptcy. Overnight, trade routes that had served hundreds of worlds simply stopped operating. The economic shockwaves spread quickly. Worlds that depended on imported food faced starvation. Planets that exported raw materials lost their markets. Industrial. centers shut down without essential components. The Zephyrian Confederacy, one of the galaxy's oldest and most powerful civilizations, watched helplessly as their empire began to fragment. Prime Minister Axelon called an emergency session of the Confederacy Council. Representatives from their member worlds attended via quantum communication, though the connection was unstable and frequently cut out. "The situation is critical," she announced. "We're losing contact with our outer colonies. Trade has dropped by 60%. Several worlds are threatening to declare independence." "What about our own ships?" asked Governor Bexmar from the Vega system. "Can't we maintain trade ourselves?" "We're trying, but our navigation systems are unreliable. Last week, a cargo ship bound for your system ended up in Krell space by mistake. It took them 12 days to find their way back." The truth was that the Zephyrians, like most advanced species, had become completely dependent on automated systems. Their pilots no longer knew how to navigate by stars. Their economists relied on computer models they didn't understand. Their administrators used databases and protocols created by humans. General Tex Ran, head of Confederacy Security, delivered even worse news. "Our military coordination is falling apart. We can't rely on our tactical computers anymore. Yesterday, a training exercise nearly resulted in 2 of our fleets shooting at each other because their identification systems gave conflicting readings." "How is that possible?" Prime Minister Axelon asked. "The identification protocols were written by human programmers 20 years ago. They've been updated continuously since then, always by humans. We never bothered to learn how they worked." The meeting was interrupted when the quantum communication system crashed entirely. Half the governors disappeared from the holographic display, their signals lost in space. The remaining representatives looked at each other with growing panic. The Confederacy had ruled over hundreds of worlds for 3,000 years. Their technology was supposed to be the most advanced in the galaxy. But without humans to maintain it, their mighty empire was crumbling. Similar collapses were happening everywhere. The Krell Hive discovered that their collective consciousness network, which connected billions of their insect-like species across space, was breaking down. The network relied on translation algorithms that humans had helped design. Without constant updates, the algorithms were producing corrupted data that confused and frightened the entire hive. Queen Zixara, the supreme leader of the Krell, felt the chaos in her mind as conflicting information flooded through the network. Messages that should have been clear orders became garbled nonsense. Reports from distant worlds arrived as incomprehensible static. "Cut all external connections," she commanded her technicians. "Isolate our core worlds until we can fix this," but even that simple command was difficult to execute. The Krell had used human-designed coordination systems for so long that they had forgotten how to manage their empire manually. The Altarian Union faced different but equally serious problems. Their advanced research stations throughout the galaxy were producing contradictory scientific data. Experiments that should have given consistent results were yielding random numbers. Medical equipment was misdiagnosing diseases. Even their basic mathematics seemed to be wrong. Dr. Yildtar, who had first discovered the depth of human integration in their systems, worked frantically to understand what was happening. "It's not just software," he reported to the Union's Science Council. "Humans contributed to our fundamental understanding of physics, chemistry, and biology. They helped calibrate our instruments, verify our theories, and check our calculations. Without their input, we're operating on incomplete knowledge." The realization was terrifying. For 50 years, human scientists had been quietly correcting errors, suggesting improvements, and filling gaps in other species' knowledge. They had done it so subtly that no one noticed their contributions. Now, without humans to provide those corrections, the accumulated errors were cascading through every scientific endeavor. Meanwhile, the galactic search for humanity continued, but it was increasingly hampered by the technological failures. Search ships got lost when their navigation systems malfunctioned. Communication with exploration teams was sporadic and unreliable. Several vessels had disappeared entirely, presumably still searching for humans in regions they could no longer. Report back from Captain Rexmar of the search ship Deep Explorer found himself stranded in an unmapped system when his stellar cartography database corrupted itself. According to his instruments, he was simultaneously in 5 different locations, none of which appeared on any chart. "Can we get a message back to base?" he asked his communications officer. "I'll try, but the quantum transmitter keeps saying, 'We're outside the galaxy entirely.' That can't be right." "Nothing's right anymore," Captain Rexmar muttered. "Plot a course for home using manual calculations." "Sir, I don't know how to do manual calculations, do you?" The captain stared out at the unfamiliar stars and realized he didn't know either. Like most of his generation, he had always relied on computer systems to handle the mathematics of space travel. Back at the Galactic Council, Speaker Mordun called another emergency session. The Great Chamber was only half full. Many representatives couldn't travel to the meeting because their transportation systems had failed. "The situation is becoming desperate," he announced. 12 major trade routes have collapsed. 4 member species have lost contact with their outer colonies. The galactic economy has shrunk by 40% in just 6 months. Councillor Vexithera stood to address the assembly. "We must face the truth. Humanity wasn't just another member species. They were the hidden foundation that held our civilization together." "But how?" asked Councillor Thane, whose Zephyrian confederacy was among the worst affected. "We built this civilization over thousands of years. Humans have only been here for 50. "That's exactly the point," Vexithera replied. "We built our civilization, slowly, with each species contributing their strengths. Zentaurians provided military organization. Krell offered collective coordination. Altarians contributed advanced science. Zephyrians brought diplomatic skill." She paused, looking around the chamber. But when humans arrived, they didn't just add their own contributions. They looked at everything we had built and found ways to make it work better. They optimized our systems, fixed our errors, and filled our gaps. "And we let them," Speaker Mordun said quietly. "We encouraged them," Vexithera corrected. "We thought they were being helpful junior partners. We didn't realize they were becoming essential to our survival." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations had unknowingly made themselves dependent on a species they had barely respected. "What can we do?" asked Councillor Zekmar. "We must find them," Speaker Mordun declared. "Whatever the cost, however long it takes, we must bring humanity back." But even as he spoke, reports arrived of new disasters. The Rigel system's sun had become unstable because the solar monitoring stations had malfunctioned. 3 more trade consortiums had declared bankruptcy. An entire sector of space had gone dark when its communication relays failed. The galaxy was dying, and humanity was still nowhere to be found. In her private quarters, Vexithera stared at the growing list of failures and wondered if it was already too late. How long could galactic civilization survive without the species that had unknowingly become its most vital component? The answer, she feared, was not very long at all. The desperate search one year after humanity's disappearance, Councillor Vexithera led the largest archaeological expedition in galactic history. With traditional search methods failing due to technological breakdowns, the Council had decided to examine human worlds more carefully, looking for clues about where they might have gone. Vexithera's team included the galaxy's best archaeologists, linguists, and historians from every major species. They had spent months planning their investigation of Earth and the major human colonies, hoping to find something everyone had missed. What they discovered was far more disturbing than anyone had imagined. The first breakthrough came on New Geneva, humanity's oldest colony world. Dr. Kixtal, a Krell archaeologist, was examining what appeared to be a standard human data center when she made an unexpected discovery. "Counselor, you need to see this," she called out, her mandibles clicking with excitement. Vexathera hurried over to examine Dr. Kixtal's find. Hidden beneath layers of standard computer equipment was a massive data storage facility. The computers were still running, protected by power systems that could operate for centuries. "What's stored here?" Vexathera asked. "That's what's so strange," Dr. Kixtal replied. "It's not human data. It's information about every other species in the galaxy. Detailed files on Zentorian military capabilities, Zephyrian diplomatic strategies, Krell biological weaknesses, Altarian scientific limitations. Everything. The files were incredibly detailed. They contained personality profiles of important leaders, economic analyses of entire civilizations, and technological assessments that revealed the weaknesses and dependencies of every species. How did they gather all this information? Vexathara wondered. The answer came from Dr. Morlex, an Altarian linguist who was analyzing human communication records. "They were watching us the entire time," he reported. "Every cultural exchange, every joint research project, every diplomatic meeting, humans were studying us. The team found similar data centers on every human world they visited. Each one contained terabytes of information about galactic civilization, all carefully organized and regularly updated. But the most shocking discovery came when they accessed the central archives on Earth itself. Professor Yexara, a Zephyrian historian, found what appeared to be humanity's long-term strategic planning database. The files dated back to humanity's first contact with galactic civilization 50 years earlier. They called it the Long Game, she reported to the assembled team. "It appears to be a comprehensive plan spanning multiple decades. The Long Game was breathtaking in its scope and patience. The humans had analyzed galactic civilization and identified its critical weaknesses within months of making first contact. They had then spent 50 years systematically making themselves essential to the galaxy's continued operation. It hadn't been accidental or opportunistic. Every offer of assistance, every helpful suggestion, every technological contribution had been part of a carefully orchestrated plan." "Look at this," Professor Yexara said, displaying a document on the holographic projector. Phase 1. Integration. Make humanity useful to galactic civilization through small but essential contributions. She scrolled to the next section. Phase 2. Dependency. Gradually make other species reliant on human expertise while they remain unaware of their dependence. The final section made everyone in the room uncomfortable. Phase 3. Leverage. Use dependency to achieve strategic objectives, or, if necessary, withdraw completely to force recognition of humanity's value. Dr. Kixtal's mandibles clicked, nervously. They planned this from the beginning. Everything they did for the past 50 years was preparation for leaving. Vexathara felt a chill run through her body. But why? What did they want that we didn't give them? The answer came from the personal logs of human leaders, which the team found hidden in encrypted archives. The logs revealed decades of frustration with humanity's treatment by other galactic species. Admiral Sarah Chen, Earth's former representative to the Galactic Council, had written extensively about the problem. "We offer solutions and are ignored. We contribute technology and receive no credit. We prevent conflicts and are called meddlesome. We ask for equal treatment and are told to be patient. After 30 years of this, I'm beginning to wonder if patience is a virtue or a weakness." Dr. Marcus Webb, humanity's chief scientific advisor, had been even more direct. "They treat us like useful pets, smart enough to solve their problems but not worthy of real respect. We sit in the back of the council chamber while they debate issues we could resolve in minutes. They take our innovations and claim them as their own. This can't continue forever." The Kaiku logs painted a picture of a species that had grown increasingly frustrated with their position in galactic society. Humans had been treated as junior partners at best, useful servants at worst. Their contributions were taken for granted, their opinions dismissed, their requests for greater recognition ignored. They were planning to leave for at least 20 years, reported Dr. Yiltar, who had been analyzing the technical documentation. Look at these engineering specifications. They designed their systems to be essential but removable. They built in dependency while maintaining the ability to extract themselves cleanly. The preparation had been remarkable. Humans had trained no other species to maintain their systems. They had shared the benefits of their technology without explaining how it worked. They had made themselves indispensable while remaining completely replaceable if they chose to leave. But where did they go? Vexthera asked. The answer to that question came from the most heavily encrypted files in the human archives. Dr. Kexval, a Zentaurian cryptographer, had spent weeks breaking the security protocols. They called it Project Exodus, he reported. It was a secret colonization program that ran parallel to their official activities. The files revealed that humans had been secretly exploring regions of space beyond the galaxy's edge. They had found habitable worlds in nearby dwarf galaxies and had been quietly establishing colonies there for decades. They moved slowly and carefully, Dr. Kexaval explained, small groups at a time, always maintaining their presence in our galaxy so no one would suspect. When they were ready, they evacuated everyone in a matter of days. The scope of the operation was staggering. Billions of humans had been relocated to worlds light years away from any known galactic civilization. They had taken their technology, their knowledge, and their expertise with them. They're not hiding, Vexithara realized. They've gone somewhere we can't follow them. The expedition team worked for another month, cataloging the evidence of humanity's careful withdrawal. They found contingency plans for every possible scenario, detailed analyses of how galactic civilization would react to their absence, and even predictions about how long it would take for other species to discover the truth. The humans had known exactly what would happen when they left. They had calculated the economic collapse, the technological failures, and the desperate search that would follow. They had planned for all of it. When the expedition returned to the Galactic Council, their report sent shockwaves through what remained of galactic civilization. The revelation that humanity had been manipulating galactic society for 50 years, while planning their departure, was devastating to the pride of every species. They played us, Speaker Mordoon said after hearing the full report. For half a century, they made us dance to their tune while preparing to abandon us. No, Vexithara corrected. They served us faithfully for 50 years while being treated as second-class citizens. When they realized we would never give them the respect they deserved, they chose to leave. The distinction was important, but it didn't change the reality. Humanity was gone, the galaxy was collapsing, and the remaining species finally understood that they had lost the most valuable partners they had ever had. The question now was whether it was too late to get them back. The final reckoning, 2 years after humanity's departure, the Galactic Council convened for what many believed would be their final session. The great chamber that had once housed representatives from 47 species now held delegates from barely 20 civilizations. The rest had either collapsed entirely or retreated into isolation as their technology failed and their societies crumbled. Speaker Mordoon stood before the nearly empty chamber, his massive form showing signs of wear and stress. The rock-like skin that had once gleamed now appeared dull and cracked. His voice, which had commanded respect for decades, carried a note of desperate exhaustion. "Fellow counselors," he began, "we gather today to face the truth of our situation. 2 years ago, we were the leaders of the most advanced civilization in galactic history. Today, we struggle to maintain basic communication between our worlds." Around the chamber, the remaining representatives sat in stunned silence. Each of them had witnessed the collapse of everything they had worked to build. Counselor Thane of the Zephyrian Confederacy spoke first. Her gaseous form flickered weakly within, its containment suit. "Half of my people have died," she said quietly. Without the medical systems that humans maintained, we can't treat basic diseases. Our atmospheric processors have failed on 12 worlds. We're slowly suffocating in our own colonies. Counselor Zekmar of the Krell was next. His once proud mandibles hung low as he reported. The hive mind has fractured. Without the communication protocols humans designed, we can't maintain collective consciousness across interstellar distances. My people are reverting to primitive tribal structures. We're becoming what we were before we reached the stars. The reports continued, each more devastating than the last. The Zentorian Empire had lost contact with 80% of their territory. The Altarian Union's scientific advancement had stopped completely. Their researchers could no longer trust their instruments or verify their theories. Trade between species had virtually ceased. Most cargo ships couldn't navigate reliably enough to make profitable runs. The few that tried often got lost or arrived at the wrong destinations. The galactic economy had shrunk by 90%. Entire regions of space had gone dark as communication relays failed and couldn't be repaired. No one knew what was happening in those sectors. Ships sent to investigate often never returned. "We're witnessing the death of our civilization," Speaker Mordun said. "Everything we built over thousands of years is crumbling because we lost one species that we barely respected." Vexthara rose from her seat. She had aged visibly in the past 2 years, her purple skin now showing silver patches of stress. As the counselor who had first discovered humanity's disappearance, she had become the unofficial leader of the search efforts. "I have a proposal," she announced. "We must humble ourselves and ask humanity to return." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Despite their desperate situation, many representatives still couldn't accept the idea of begging for help from a species they had considered inferior. "Ask them?" Counselor Rexmar of the Draconian Alliance snarled. "They abandoned us. They sabotaged our civilization and left us to die." "No," Vexathera replied firmly. "They served us faithfully for 50 years while we treated them as servants. When they realized we would never see them as equals, they chose to leave rather than continue being taken for granted." She activated a holographic display showing the archaeological evidence her team had gathered. "Look at their records. Look at how we treated them. They offered solutions and we ignored them. They prevented wars and we called them meddlesome. They asked for respect and we told them to wait their turn." The evidence was undeniable. For decades, humans had been the galaxy's problem solvers, peacekeepers, and innovators. In return, they had received condescension, dismissal, and casual disrespect. "They weren't plotting against us," Vexathara continued. "They were protecting themselves. They made sure they could leave if we never learned to value them properly, and we proved them right." Speaker Morden raised his hand for silence. "Counselor Vexathara, do we even know how to contact them?" "Our long-range sensors have detected energy signatures in the Andromeda Dwarf Galaxy," she reported. "It's consistent with human technology. If we send a message using the communication protocols they left behind, they might receive it." "And what would we say?" asked Counselor Thane. The question hung in the air. What could they possibly say to justify 50 years of disrespect? How could they admit that their mighty civilizations had been utterly dependent on a species they had barely acknowledged? "We tell them the truth," Vexathera said. "We tell them we were wrong. We tell them we need them. And we promise to treat them as the equals they always were." The debate that followed was painful and humbling. Species that had considered themselves superior to humanity were forced to confront their own arrogance and blindness. Leaders who had dismissed human contributions had to admit that their civilizations couldn't survive without them. Finally, Speaker Mordun called for a vote. "All in favor of sending a formal request for humanity's return with an offer of full equality and recognition." One by one, the remaining counselors voted. Some did so reluctantly, their pride still wounded. Others voted with relief, grateful for any chance to save their dying civilizations. The vote was unanimous. Working together, the surviving species crafted a message unlike any in galactic history. It was part apology, part plea, and part promise. They acknowledged their mistakes, admitted their dependence, and offered humanity the equal partnership they should have provided from the beginning. The message was transmitted using every available communication method aimed at the energy signatures in the Andromeda dwarf galaxy. Then came the hardest part: waiting. Weeks passed with no response. Some counselors began to fear that humanity was too far away to receive the message. Others worried that humans might receive it, but choose not to respond. As the waiting continued, the collapse of galactic civilization accelerated. 3 more species lost contact with their governments. The Rigel system's star finally destabilized, forcing the evacuation of 6 billion people to refugee camps on other worlds. Then, just when hope seemed lost, something appeared at the edge of Council space. A single human ship, sleek and advanced beyond anything the galaxy had seen before. It approached slowly, broadcasting a simple message on all frequencies. "This is Captain Maria Santos of the Earth vessel Prometheus. We received your transmission. We are here to talk." The appearance of the human ship sent shockwaves throughout the remaining galactic civilizations. After 2 years of collapse and despair, humanity had returned. But their ship's advanced design made it clear that they had not been idle during their absence. Captain Santos was invited to address the Galactic Council. She was a woman in her 40s, with confident bearing and intelligent eyes. When she spoke, her words carried the weight of a species that had been underestimated for too long. 2 years ago, humanity chose to leave rather than continue being taken for granted, she said. We had grown tired of being treated as junior partners in a civilization we helped build and maintain. She paused, looking around the sparse chamber. We see that our departure has had consequences. We are saddened by the suffering it has caused, but we cannot say we are surprised. We tried for 50 years to warn you about the dependencies you were creating. Speaker Mordoon stepped forward. Captain Santos, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally apologize for how humanity was treated. We were blind to your contributions and arrogant about our own abilities. We offer you full membership in the Council with all the rights and recognition you deserve. Captain Santos considered this carefully. And what guarantee do we have that things will be different this time? None, Vexthera admitted, stepping up beside the speaker. Except our desperation and the knowledge of what we've lost. We can't promise we'll never make mistakes again, but we can promise we'll never again take your contributions for granted. Captain Santos nodded slowly. Humanity has spent the past 2 years building new homes in distant galaxies. We have created a civilization where we are respected as equals and valued for our contributions. We don't need to return. The words hit the assembled counselors like physical blows. If humanity didn't need them, why should they help? But, Captain Santos continued, we remember the friendships we made here. We remember the good things about galactic civilization, not just the bad. And we believe that people can change when they're forced to confront their mistakes. She turned to address the entire chamber. Humanity will return, but on new terms. We will be equal partners, not helpful servants. Our contributions will be acknowledged, not taken for granted. And if we're ever again treated as second-class citizens, we won't wait 50 years to leave. The terms were harsh but fair. Humanity would help rebuild galactic civilization, but they would do so as respected equals. They would share their new technologies and innovations, but other species would have to earn that knowledge through genuine partnership. It would take years to undo the damage of the past 2 years. Many civilizations had collapsed too far to recover completely. But with humanity's return, the galaxy had hope again. As Captain Santos concluded her address, she delivered one final,